call this academic committee meeting to order. It is being conducted by video conferencing, and I do believe the county channel is broadcasting this. I see that they are on. So wonderful. Well, then let's go ahead and start out with the Pledge of Allegiance, if we could.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right, let's take a look at the agenda. Any questions or comments? If none, we have a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, great. So are there any thoughts on it? Anything missing? No? Okay, then go ahead. Let's
Stuff's on there.
let's vote. All those.
Yes.
Aye, okay, unanimous. Great. Robin, do we have any public comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay, let's move on to the approval of the September 30th, 2020 committee meeting minutes.
I move we approve the minutes as written.
I'll second.
Wonderful. Any discussion? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Thank you very much. And then our first order of business is to PE 1.2. We had a tremendously great conversation about this at our last meeting, but we did ask for some follow-up to it. And Dr. Nakia Campbell is going to share that with us. I just wanted to preface before we begin, once again, the importance of these PEs. As you all know, our scope has now been delineated to just to the PEs and any other topic that the board or the chair may assign to us. So this is the work. These PEs are the work that you all are doing and evidence of that work. Another purpose for it is also a moment of reflection. I would hope that as these PEs are being developed and updated and information presented, that it's a time of reflection as to how practices are being conducted and a time for good possibilities for future change. So I just wanted to make sure that all are aware of the importance of these PEs. All right. So Dr. Campbell, are you ready?
Yes, thank you so much.
Dr. Campbell, do I have the right document up that you want to start with, or is it the other one?
Well, this is the summary of the document that we did on September 30th. I think both will be important as we move forward, but today I was given the direction of a summary of last presentation and with the follow-up feedback from the academic committee.
Right. Dr. Campbell, I think that this would suffice because you're basically responding to any questions we had about the last one or requests. And so this would be the addition to the completed.
Yes, ma'am. That
Right.
was my intent. It was to add on to what we presented from last month.
Right. Right.
So,
Mr. Campbell or Ms. Robine, do you have anything to add about that?
I have
No.
nothing.
I think that these are answers to the feedback questions that are delineated on the first page of this, most of
Right.
them.
Right. Okay.
So do you want me to go through the report or just answer questions? I just
I'd
tell
like you to
me
go
what I
through
need
the
to do.
summary. Yes, go through the summary.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, sounds great. So at our last meeting, which was September 30th, I honestly want to share this information. I appreciate the feedback from the academic committee. It forced me to look at things a little differently in terms of the presentation for our professional learning. Not only did I feel that I was reflective in the work for the last month, but also the principles. So I'll just tell you from the time that I presented, the 5 areas that I captured in that what I needed to provide some feedback on. That was additional professional development data. So it's data-driven, quantifying the information, not qualifying the information. Also providing evidence for one of our interim goals for our strategic plan was to increase our EOC rates for Algebra 1 as well as English 2, and providing the professional development that's aligned to that. So I included that information in the summary as well. Also, when we left in September, we really charged our principals with digging deeper in their data before they submit their professional development plan. And a part of that process was to give them a root cause analysis document, which we call the fishbone, and have them really dig into the achievement gap data. The information that was principals started submitting that documentation to me last week as well as this week, because our professional development plans are due at the end of the month. And I felt that it was imperative that our principals reflect on the root causes before providing the professional development plan. We really need to know what are causing our gaps. And once we identify some of those causes, the professional development is a remedy to that. It can fill some of those needs and gaps so that we can become goal-oriented and we get closer to the goals that we are assigned. Robin, so in this summary report, I will try to address the 5 bulleted areas. So the first one was professional development data. In the previous report, I talked about the fact that we have new hires and there's training that is associated with those hires through HR as well as instructional services. And that training begins in May. This year, to date, as of a week ago, we had 304 new hires. That includes our teachers, our administrators, as well as our classified. And 304 of those people were trained through that hiring cycle. The training occurred every Monday, and we also increased our professional time, which was Monday and Thursdays, to get people in and trained to their prospective locations. Can scroll up a little bit. The next is to quantify our book study. We have 31 principals within our district. All of our principals participated in the principal book study Onward and Leverage Leadership with our co-facilitators. In July, we will continue our book study at the end of the month, beginning October 27th through the 30th. We divided our principals up into 6 groups, so we have a more intimate setting because we're talking about really provocative topics. We're talking about our achievement gap with our students of color and really digging into some of our root causes with that. So we thought it was advantageous for our groups to be small so that we could have those conversations and we can learn from each other. But not only our principals were involved, we also had our directors of ACE as well as Right Choice Program participate in this. And thus far, 100% of the 33 principals have participated and are we're looking forward for them to participate in the second part of the book study at the end of the month. Our LEAP week, which I described, was a state initiative. It was optional, but was highly encouraged. Basically, LEAP week was designed for our pre-K through 8th grade teachers. So it wasn't for high school. So we pulled the high school numbers from the total number of teachers that could participate. And of that, 753 of our 1,175 teachers participated in our LEAP week. But I do want to preface that you only required the professional development credit from the state if you came into the building. So teachers who participated had to actually come into the building to participate in the virtual training. They were compensated, that was all built into the budget. So of that, 64% of our pre-K through 8th grade teachers participated in our Leap Week, which are built in professional development days prior to our pre-service days. In addition, I mentioned this in the last part of the report, that our new teacher technology training was offered beginning in June, weekly throughout the month of July. And these were for our teachers, new teachers. We had 238 new teachers participate in the training, and well, we had 238 new teachers and all of them participated in the training. In addition, a part of our AUP is that our teachers are familiarized and with our cyber safety and cyber citizenship with the devices that they have access to, and all of our teachers have gone through that process. In addition to our district professional development, principals are given submit a week of professional development that will occur in their buildings. Some of the trainings that occurred, Robin, if you can go up just a little bit. Just go up just a little bit. Okay. So some of the trainings that occurred for our school-based professional development included strengthening our online instruction, SLO, which is our student learning observation goals for our teachers, RTI, MTSS, and ADEPT training, as well as our K-12 learning training. And also we had some of our schools really working on how to build communities virtually. So our school-based professional development occurred August 31st through September 4th. We tried to give our principals autonomy on the August 31st, since that's technically the first day that they will receive their teachers. Many of our trainings occurred the Tuesday through the Friday of that particular week. We had over 85 sessions that were offered during the week of our school-based professional development. Of those, of the trainings that we provided, 1,717 of our total number of teachers and administrators participated. And again, we're pulling this data from my learning plan, so we may have some error there, but based on documentation, this is what we were able to pull. So if they didn't sign up, they didn't get credit, so they weren't counted in the 96% of teachers or staff being trained.
Dr. Campbell, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So this training was not necessarily required. So some of
What
these
are you talking
teachers
about?
could have been, all right, so the first week of August, 31st to the 4th, right? You said you
Right, so-
took your day.
So it's two things going on, Ms. Fidrych. There is the school-based professional development, which the principals are responsible for.
Right.
So principals are also responsible in putting, making sure that those are documented in my learning plan so that we pull the data. We know who signed up for that. So this is what was presented in my learning plan for the number of school-based professional development trainings offered that first week. Along with the school-based, the district also provided professional development, which is in the next table.
Okay.
And of that, based on my learning plan document, 1,484 of the total number of teachers participated in the training that the district provided. And the district provided 83 sessions throughout that week for teachers to participate.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I want to follow up on Ms. Fidrych's question. I understand how it was done. So I have a couple of questions. If you were absent on those days and didn't participate in the in-service, is there a way to still get the training?
Yes, ma'am.
Some,
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
okay. And then the other question is, if only 83% are participating in the district professional development, then I would guess that it's not really required, because you would think that if it's required that everybody do it,
Right,
that we
so,
should have higher numbers, unless they were absent, and then do they go back and make it up, that type of thing.
yeah, so those are all good questions and I can answer that. So our goal is to provide training for all content area teachers. I do want to preface that if there were teachers that participated in Leap Week, we repeated some of those sessions for teachers in the district time. So if teachers participated in Leap Week, they didn't repeat the training again during the district time. So for example, we had K-12 learning training offered during our Leap Week. If people could not participate in that, we offered it again during our pre-service days. So that could be some of the difference of why the numbers aren't closer to the 1789. But again, I could dig deeper to find out the reason why, but yes, this was the documentation that was pulled from my learning plan, and it equated to 83%.
Because regardless of when they took it, if they took it during Leap Week or a different time, it should show up in their My Learning Plan if they're have actually completed it, I guess, right? They should. Dr. Stratos is raising her hand.
Because the percentage are week specific.
Okay,
So,
I see. They're
right?
date specific, not content
Yes,
specific.
Yeah,
ma'am.
yes. So they're actually, there's week specific, the 96% versus, and their content. So they're actually specific on certain things. And you back out other personnel on these because like counselors would not have been
Right,
one point, right? So
okay. Okay, because like if you go to the next one, the cyber safety training,
yeah.
that's required for everybody.
Right.
I mean, that's you got to have that training, correct? And so, there's 100% there because everyone made sure they got it.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Next is our Safe Schools training. This data was due at the end of September, so it was kind of like at the cut of when I pulled that. And I'm sure that we've increased this since then. And the way that the Safe Schools training produces their data is based on school completion. So of the schools, 23 schools have 95 to 100% completion of our Safe Schools training. We have 2 schools that fell into 90 to 94% completion, and 6 schools were less than 89% completion of our Safe Schools when I pull the data for completion.
Dr. Campbell, at
Yes,
last
ma'am.
night's board meeting, am I recalling that there is a new Safe School module that teachers are required to have completed in COVID?
Yes, ma'am.
So,
When I took the Safe Schools training, that was, I think, one of the first 2 modules that I completed. So it is a part of that. COVID-19.
so that's included in this.
Yes, ma'am. That's included.
That's
one of
included
the
in-
modules.
Okay, I got the impression that it was something new, but it was out before the deadline that these were
Right.
required.
Yes,
Okay,
it was
so-
one of the modules. So when I completed it, that was one of the second modules that I completed, and I recognized that it was something new than what I had before. So
Okay,
yes.
All right, so then,
Perspective.
so then that begs the question, if 6 schools have 89% or less completed, and COVID, you know, such a big thing, I mean, what's being done to get those schools up to 100%? How are you supporting that to?
So I
Yes,
do
Mary?
know that Jennifer Staten, who works in HR, she's a part of the risk management. She sent out several emails after I pulled this data because she knew that it was for this report specifically. And since then, the numbers have increased. And so I think twice a week, she pulls that data and provides that. The last email that I received, I think it was on Monday, and there were an additional 50 staff members that completed the training. And I think she submitted another document last week. So every week we get an update of completion. But again, when I pulled this data, that's where we were. And we'll continue to encourage our teachers and staff to complete it because it's so important.
Right.
Uh,
Go ahead, Mr. Campbell.
who gets that encouragement? Does it go down through the administrator, or do you go
So
teacher
again,
specific?
I pull the data from HR, so that's really an HR area. I do know that
Okay.
emails were sent to principals who fell low in the lower category of completion.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I answered the question.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you get that percentage because, not because some teachers didn't complete the list of things they're supposed to go through for COVID, I assume. And if you got 89%, then there are a certain number of teachers. I want to know who's targeting and reminding those teachers to get it done.
Right.
Is it the administrator? Is it the district? Do they
So
get a
I
letter
think-
from the district saying they have to get this done within a certain time period, or does the district just go to the principal of the school and say, look, we want to get your numbers up?
Right, so because we're seeing increases, I will guarantee that that information is being sent to the principals so that
Okay.
teachers can get the information, the training completed.
Okay,
And I was
All
just
right.
copied on an email that shared with me that it's being communicated to principals
yeah, I saw it.
about their school-wide data.
I saw that from Mary too. Yes, okay.
I just have to say that I would hope that given with, you know, all the extra demands that are on everybody right now, the total number of items in the Safe Schools training that you have to take, I mean, it can equal up to 7 hours.
Yes, it
You
can.
know, it is long, and
It is.
it's always been done on teachers' time. It's never been a paid type of thing. You know, you're getting training, but you're not getting paid. You have to squeeze this in before September 30th, but you're starting school. So I would hope that principals could find a way to these people that haven't finished, you know, just find a way to support it. I remember one year a list came out and it was such a punitive thing, you know, a slap on the hand because you didn't get it done by such and such a date. Mel, you're nodding your head, aren't you?
Yeah, because is the common theme, and but at the same time, Tricia, you have such a high percentage of people who have done it, you know, and such a small portion of people who haven't done it. So you want to dig deeper into what is the problem, what is the reason why they haven't gotten it done. That's why I wanted to know whether it was going directly to those teachers, which they would not respond to the district's directive, but they, does it go to the principal? And she said it does. So the principal can zero in on, the load of those teachers and support they would need to get that done.
We're saying the same thing, Mel.
Yes,
So
we are.
I'm
Yeah.
hoping the principals will dive into it and do whatever they can to support those teachers, because what's the reason they haven't finished it yet?
Yeah, there's probably a common, theme in the reasoning. Yeah.
Right.
I could share that on the list that we had circulating in the district office. There were personnel who had retired already, still on the list as well. I don't know if that was backed up from your numbers, Dr. Campbell. There were some personnel who had recently resigned on that as well. Yeah. So, and it wasn't backed out on the distribution when that reminder went out, but Safe Schools also sends out reminders to us. But Mrs. Fidrych, you're correct. It is tedious. It does take a lot of time.
Does.
Yes, ma'am. I made
So-
note of that as something to share with principals for the upcoming
When I
year.
completed, I think there were at least 11 to 12 modules
Yes,
that you had to
Yeah.
complete, and you have to stick with it. Some modules were at least 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah. And then the quiz at the end.
That's
Quiz
right.
at
But
the
you
end.
know what? You can figure that quiz out without watching the whole thing.
Not anymore,
Yeah,
Ms.
it's all,
Robine.
it's all a
FYI.
farce. Yeah. It's all,
I-
it's all just the
tried.
routine.
I think that I've memorized that whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's different.
Oh, it's different
It's Form B. We mastered Form A.
now? Okay.
I mean, bottom
you
line
know
is,
what
what
you-
do you know when you're done?
Do it during a faculty meeting with donuts. See, but now we're not all in person, so that's hard, you know?
Right.
You
right.
bring in
No,
the
but
coffee and donuts and bribe them and they do it.
It's different now. I think in the past you could fast forward the videos, but you can't do that anymore.
No, you can't.
Now that, I mean, it's just different. They do
Right.
mini quizzes. So after you watch a video, then there's a mini quiz that you have to take. So it makes you stay engaged. Like you can't just leave
Oh,
it and
that's-
run.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's important information. It's just like after you've taken it the first year, and you know, I understand why we have to take it every year, but it's still then that's when it gets a little tedious. So
Right, but it is mandatory training. So in
Yeah.
my mind, it has always been that, if it's mandatory training, there should be a time during the workday or something during PD week where teachers are given the time to finish it. I don't know. So it's something to think about. Okay, you want to continue, Dr. Campbell?
Yes, ma'am. Robin, if I can go up to the next one. So we shared this, the mandatory Zoom training, and this training started prior to this school year. It's when we broke for the pandemic and we had to shift our teachers in the delivery model of instruction. It was mandatory that all of our teachers got Zoom training, and all of our teachers in a very short period of time were trained for Zoom. And the information was shared in the previous report.
And what about our new teachers that joined us after this March training date?
Yeah, so that's a part of the new teacher training, that's
Okay.
a part of the virtual catalog that's attached to the report that I provided. That's a part of the training that occurs for the new teachers as well.
Okay,
As
great.
well
Thank
as
you.
follow-up training with tech coaches, if there's like any area of deficiency or, they need more support, they're there to provide that.
Okay.
So we have 167 special education teachers, and what Dr. White did, she provided a plethora of training for our special ed teachers during the during the LEAP week, as well as our district professional development week. And these were some of the trainings that were provided for our special education teachers. The reason why we don't see 100, and I asked Dr. White about that, some of the teachers, she had a couple of teachers that were hired after these dates. So, they had to provide that particular training. A couple of people were out, but what Dr. White did tell me, she has ongoing training for her teachers. I do know that there was a training just this week for some of her special education teachers. So she said this number is more than likely increased from the time that I pulled it. And anytime that there is training, they provide that access for teachers to be trained. So read to succeed. So at the end of each certification cycle, our teachers are required to have our read to succeed endorsement. So in our previous report, there was 141 teachers that have completed the read to succeed certification for this cycle, and the cycle ends June of 2021. There are 299 of our staff that need to complete the Read to Succeed certification. So 141 have completed it. We currently have a total of 33 teachers that are currently in a Read to Succeed cohort through virtual SC in the district. And so our goal is that by the end of the year, everyone will have their Read to Succeed endorsement on their certification. So I know the numbers look a little low, but based on this school year, I feel that we can get there once the cohort completes, and they complete their training November the 22nd. So we'll be able to add an additional 33 trained certified people in our district to that number.
But that leaves well over, you know, what, 120
23, yeah.
that will still need it?
So what was that?
About over 120 teachers that will need it by June of 2021
June
to
of 2021.
get their
yes, ma'am.
certification?
Right. So there are multiple opportunities for them to jump into the Read to Succeed courses. They're offered almost on a monthly basis. And we have between 25 to 35 join every month through the virtual, but this is only one opportunity to provide, to get the recertification. I'm sorry, the Read to Succeed endorsement. You can do it on your own, but the reason why we have control over, you know, the numbers of people who that participate in our Read to Succeed courses that we offer through virtual SC. But we do have other teachers that gain their Read to Succeed endorsement in other avenues that aren't a part of Beaufort County. So I just want to put that as well. These are the teachers that are taking advantage of our partnership between our virtual SC. And then the other thing that I want to mention is that every year we have, even though the certification is up, we have teachers that are going to retire, that know that they're going to retire at the end of the year, and they're not going to pursue the certification. So we have to, even though they're part of the 299, at the end of the year, they'll let us know if they're going to return or not. So we would have to look at those numbers as well.
Okay.
So who informs the teachers that it's their recertification renewal? I mean, you would think that the
So that's a
teachers
great
would be
question.
aware.
That falls in HR.
Okay.
Her name is Carolyn Jenkins. She works with My Learning Plan. Carolyn
Okay.
Jenkins provides updates to all of our teachers and their certification, what they need in order to be certified each year. She sends that notification out at the beginning of the year, mid-year, keep making sure that they have ample opportunities to get the recertification as well as the endorsement for Read to Succeed.
Great.
The next is Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. These are our numbers of trained teachers in our district. We currently have a cohort of PSYOP teachers that are in training, and it's, I think 58, I'm sorry, 58 are involved in that particular training. So those numbers will increase. I wasn't really impressed with the numbers, but I dug a little deeper with the percentage. I do know that there was energy and effort to have our southern schools trained in PSYOP because we saw more of our ELL students on the southern part of our district. So when I looked at the schools in our district, all 78% of our southern schools were above the district percentage. So many of our southern schools had 90% trained teachers. We even had one elementary school that had 100% PSYOP trained teachers. So our higher percentages are where we need it the most. However, we do know that we have growth on the northern side. So we just need to emphasize the importance that these PSYOP strategies are good for our EL students, but they're good for all students. It's just good to have. So we're working with MACHOC on additional opportunities to train our teachers with PSYOP, as well as other strategies that will help our students.
Okay.
So, and one thing that's new this year with the PSYOP, just to add, is that I believe we are working with the Citadel for
Yes.
training. So
Yes.
we're having professors provide the training now, and we do incur that through Title III for the teachers.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Stratos.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I did talk about the algebra boot camp training that I did not mention in our last report. There were a total of every high school had representation of an algebra teacher for training for our algebra boot camp. So I wanted to emphasize that. So we also talked about how, as a district, we eliminate barriers for professional development opportunities. One thing that I can say in our first bullet is that the majority of our learning, professional learning opportunities occur not during our instructional time. We try to make that sacred. I'm not going to say it's 100%, but we try to plan training before, outside of our calendar year, and also the hours. We've offered 118 professional development offerings before the first day of school. So all of the trainings, like in the summer, totaled 118 sessions that we've offered before we started our school year with our students. The other is that there's a focus and energy around our gifted and talented program, as well as making sure that we increase our number of underrepresented students within our district. So we have 2 interim goals that we're working on to increase those numbers with our gifted and talented population. So a part of that is our GT endorsement courses that we offer, which are the 2 that are listed, the Intro to Curriculum for Gifted and Talented Students and our Nature and Needs course. But I wanted to kind of give you more information about that. So since we've offered this opportunity for teachers to participate in these graduate level courses, we've had approximately 80 teachers go through this. We currently have 45 teachers who are involved in our fall cohort courses. And when I talked to Carmen Dillard, she said that there is an interest of 55 additional teachers, which they will begin in the next cohort. So I just feel like this is one way that we eliminate the barriers, in that we pay for the courses, we pay for the books, so that we can get additional teachers endorsed in gifted and talented. And just like our PSYOP, these are good best practices for all students. We say the same thing about our gifted and talented training. It's good for all students. So this is an area that I wanted to emphasize how we've eliminated the barriers. So we know that these courses are needed, but we've paid for the courses as well as the supplies that are associated with them.
Dr. Campbell, one of your bullets there says that instructional coaches are available to support teachers with any professional development needs.
What my purpose behind that is that a lot of times we provided professional development training, but our new teachers, or teachers that struggle sometimes, need additional training to support. So that bullet was really to support the PD that had already occurred. We saw that when we had our K-12 learning solutions, even though we had the training and teachers participated in it, a lot of times our coaches had to follow up with teachers to provide another layer of support. So that's the reason why I provided that bullet.
No, I understand that, but that was, my question was going to be, so then are our instructional coaches required to have the GT sort of endorsement? Are they required to have the PSYOP training? Are those various criteria that our instructional coaches are required to have in order to help support professional development in all teachers?
Yes, so it's not going to be a requirement, Ms. Fidrych. I'm not going to tell you that our instructional coaches are required, but they're encouraged because they're the instructional lead, one of the instructional leads in the school. So they have to support that training, that work. Many of our coaches, I don't have a number, and I know we're talking about quantifying data, but many of our coaches do fall in those categories with those specific trainings. I mean, that would be an additional report that I would have to do, but it's not a requirement to have those trainings to be an instructional coach.
Mrs. Fidrych, go ahead, Mr. Campbell.
I'll let you respond first, Ms. Dr. Stratos, and then I'll, maybe you're gonna say what I want to say or ask.
Well, I've started that path on our coaches with Melissa Murray, looking at requirements, looking at defining what are responsibilities, and looking at what we would like them to have as, capacity within them. We're just starting that work right now. I've had a conversation with HR regarding that, as well as looking at our coaches who are part paid for by the state, looking at a signature, of attestations as you as a principal, that this coach is going to be doing this, not this. So we're just starting having that conversation to covenant that these are coaches, this is what they do, and we would like to have their capacity to include some of this. So we're just starting that bridge right now. It was a conversation about a week ago. Dr. Campbell doesn't even know about it yet. Surprise, Doc, sorry.
Yeah, I would think that would be a requirement for the instructional leaders, particularly gifted and talented in PSYOP. But I want to go further in terms of what's our target for the greater population of educators in terms of having those two endorsements, and is there a timetable on how long can a teacher remain in the district without acquiring those endorsements? I think that, I think all of those things got to be put in place if we in fact going to improve our instructional, talent. It's almost to the point where, I could not recommend a person to be a coach unless they absolutely got those two endorsements.
So that's where it crosses to that HR component. That's why I started reaching out that way, because when we are in like-mindedness at that, because you should have the bag of tricks as the coach.
Right.
But we're responsible to provide this opportunity for people as well. Right. But we're on like-mindedness, and it's a path that we're just starting. I'm with you, Mr. Campbell. And this is what they're supposed to be doing, not that.
And is there a way to add incentives for teachers, particularly the new teachers, to acquire those, those endorsements? I recall years ago in the PSYOP training, I think I had an opportunity to get credits for the PSYOP training, graduate credits, and or stipend. And that was, at least 20 years ago, probably, at least 15 years ago. So there is, a desire, I think, on many of the teachers' part, but we also have to encourage by giving something, to encourage. So because I think that's a big part of our ball game right there. You don't have to be teaching gifted and talented to have those skills.
Right.
It works very well with the low-level students.
Absolutely.
So we are having Jacob's Ladder training
Okay.
coming forward at a very good cost-effective price, looking at what you're talking about and opening it for all teachers for free for them. We're just in the process of completing that review and information in that contract because we'd like to have as many teachers as possible, GT, some type of training in GT beyond just the courses. Get a little taste first and see if you go for the courses as well that we pay.
Yeah, and because on our end, and I don't know if Tricia and Cathy agrees, but on our end, we're looking for results. But we as educators know those results, they got to be something out of the box to get the results we're looking for. If we continue to do the same things, we're gonna get the same results. So, encouraging movement in this direction is something that may require more resource directed in that area. And that's, something that you during budget time would bring to the board as something you want to do. In my mindset, and it can be, a lot more than you're probably going to get, but you need to ask for things to get the teachers where we want them to be. And it can't be at their own desire because many teachers, don't make that decision that they're going to even remain in the profession until they've been in there for 7 years or so. But at the same time, why wait 7 years before a teacher is properly,
Trained.
trained? That's correct.
I
Cathy?
just wanted to jump in on here and say, our goal, one of our major board goals and the school district's goal is to decrease the achievement gap. And so our PD should be really focusing on mandatory training that we believe will help us get there. And certainly PSYOP training,
Right.
I think it's one of the keys that will get us there. The gifted and talented training, the strategies that you use for gifted and talented kids are miracle workers with struggling students, let me tell you, because they're all about engagement and not the stand and deliver. So, but I just think that's what we have to think about, that if these are our goals, like Mel said, then our PD needs to, we need to be a little bit more deliberate in terms of requiring, our goal is every teacher is going to be PSYOP trained. Let's just say that. Let's just put it out there and then work to get that. Maybe that's our goal for next year, and then the following, but that's just my 2 cents.
Well, I think that it was encouraging, Mary, to hear you say that you're not working in a silo because, when I asked about the instructional coaches, are they trained in these things? It's like the high expectation should be, yes, you are. There's just, you shouldn't even be considered, we're in a new era. Things are moving, they're moving. And, it's a high expectation. This is what our coaches will do. And they're not going to be the ones that come in the classroom and help a teacher improve her instruction or his instruction and not have been trained in what the district obviously feels PSYOP is the way to go, or gifted and talented. So anyway, that's, I think that was a good conversation. Some very important points there. Thank you, Dr. Campbell.
One more point,
Yes,
if
sir.
I might add to the point is, MTS Tier 3, you almost have to have these endorsements to execute that properly.
Yeah.
Or else we're going around in a vicious cycle with nothing happening.
That's right.
Yeah. Good point, Mel.
I'm done.
Okay,
Good
Dr.
night.
Campbell.
So the next is our root cause analysis, which I mentioned earlier. Our principals did this activity. We asked them to do the activity with their leadership team, stakeholders at the school. I provided three examples, elementary, middle, and high. Of course, I have the other root cause analysis documents. This was, we asked the principals to really dig deep into their root causes. Mr. Campbell at our last academic committee meeting really wanted to know or ask, what are the specific goals at the school? So I wanted to provide just examples of specific key challenges, but these key challenges, when we receive the professional development goals, should be aligned. So I should see goals that are associated with these key challenges that were a part of the root cause analysis fishbone activity. I got one email from a principal. I'm not going to call that principal's name. And the principal said, "Thank you for this activity. It was really reflective. It really forced me to look at, areas that I've not looked at before." And I'm giving away, but the person said that she definitely align the professional development needs to the root causes in that particular school. So one example of the root causes from an elementary school, and this was the key challenge, that in the spring of 2019, 19.9% of their 3rd and 4th grade students would earn meets, exceeds on the South Carolina Ready and ELA. So that's the challenge. So I want to see the goals that are associated as well as the professional development needs. But the point that I'm trying to make is that these key challenges are aligned to our strategic goals that we mentioned at the end of September. So we're beginning to see some alignment. I've not received the majority of the professional development plans, but I think that's a good thing. I think it's just not just something that they're checking off, but they're really looking and making those connections, and they know that that is what the expectation is at this level. The other is middle school. This particular middle school, the key challenge is that 63% of the students, after looking at the fall map, are not reading on grade level. That's huge.
That's huge.
So when I see this particular professional development plan, it needs to scream literacy. So this to me was really an important first step into how we need to connect those dots with our professional development. So this was really like a cheat sheet before I actually see the professional development plan. The activity was asked of the principals to complete prior to turning that in. So I have received the majority. I think I'm missing 2, and but the professional development plans will not come unless I have this document first. And I think it was a very reflective practice for our principals, and I want to continue down that path and work. If you can go up to the next one. Robin. All right. Can you
Robin, are you there?
Yeah, she might have maybe dropped. Well,
Yes,
there she
ma'am.
is.
Oh, there she
Okay.
is.
Robin, there you go. Thank you.
All right, and this particular high school was focused on the ELL learners, which it connects back to the importance of our PSYOP training and how we are aligned to our interim goal of increasing our EOC scores for Algebra and English 1. All right, any questions?
Mr. Campbell, you're muted.
See the last part of the last slide there. I mean, I didn't get a chance to read it all.
Well, while you're reading, Mr. Campbell, I just want to say, Dr. Campbell, This is so, thank you. You addressed our concerns. I am so glad to hear you say that it was a reflective exercise, I mean, more than an exercise, but will now become a reflective practice, that things are aligned like this. And if I may ask you, after doing this, what is just one thing that you might have done differently this year so far?
I wish I had the information you shared in September earlier on. I think it would help with my planning for professional development, look fors. This was, and I'm not saying this just to say it, it was really, I took it, I met with Dr. Stratos. I told her, I said, I learned from the questions that you asked, so I appreciate that. It pushed me in that direction. I just feel like we need to establish some district goals. We need to hold our administrators accountable for those specific goals. The goals need to be aligned to what we have. We have the pieces, we just need to establish the expectation. So I would say 5 years. I've been in the district 23 years. 5 years ago, we had district goals. It was an expectation that I think at that point we wanted 100% of all of our southern schools to be PSYOP trained. So we need to revisit those kinds of goals and attach those or align those goals to the work that we have to do with our strategic plan. And then when we see our plans, everything just falls into place. So it is my goal to work with Dr. Stratos, Dr. Rodriguez, as well as Dr. Bradley, and just establish some instructional services expectation and goals for our schools so that we can close this gap. I'm going to say this. I don't want to talk about achievement gap. I want us to close the gap so we can move forward. But there's a lot of work that we have to do, and I appreciate you challenging me to better serve our principals and teachers.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Mel, Cathy, anything to add?
Go ahead, Cathy.
Okay, I would just like to say, I think that what I'm looking for, and I think what my colleagues are looking for, are not just general statements, but this quantifiable, okay, we said we were offering this, how many people actually took advantage of it, which is what you've just presented, because I don't think until we know, we really will be able to judge the effectiveness of what training we're offering, and is it having an impact on our achievement gap, or is it not? So I think this is a step in the right direction, and moving. I'd rather see less information, but more specific information than this broad umbrella of let's throw everything in here that every school's doing. And in a sense, sometimes that, to me, having worked in many different districts, I think that there do need to be some district commonalities that everyone's on the same page with. So I thank you for going back and getting the data.
Yeah, I'm impressed that you did get one response from one of the administrators. We encourage more response, but I'm sure fact is that the conversation have provoked some thought in terms of administrators looking at the results intently with the idea that you're looking at how they respond to the results. So many times schools are in a vacuum. They're working around it themselves, and they compare themselves with the other schools. And that's not always an effective thought, as Cathy just alluded to, in terms of what you're producing. Because if you got more, then you should produce more. And sometimes that's
Mel, you went muted there.
really when we dig deep into your particular school population.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by them highlighting certain things, as it was done here, they can look at it and find ways to improve what they're doing. And that's in my mind. I worked in the schools for almost 40 years. that's very important in terms of what schools do, what teachers do in terms of improving. And so we're not off target, and we just need to hold strong to what your plans are. I mean, stay with it and encourage the administrators to stay with it, or else then we can see some growth. But we have to be able to support that. From a board standpoint, it's easier for us to know where you're going if you're always going where you say you're going and you are moving, if that makes any sense. But if you say you're going someplace and end up going in a different direction every other year or so, then we can't even get behind where you're going, and we're certainly not going to be content that you are moving in the right direction. Does that make sense? I mean, so we, board people, mostly just now you're lucky enough that we're educated, so we kind of know the inside out, but board people are, and we may not be there for long. The board expects you to say, we're going to go A, B, C, and we're going to get to D. And that's got to be the situation long enough. As an educator, I can tell you that. So you can get to D. If you go A, B, and then deviate to F, then you're probably not going to get to D.
Yeah.
So that's what boards look at. They're very stoic, generalized people. And my experience for the 2 years and the 40 years working with school districts know that many times the education is driven by the administrators who have to be driven by the district. So that's, and I know you already know that, but we're just encouraging you to push on with your agenda, push on with your agenda with a goal in mind, because everybody wants to be successful. And I know you folks want to be successful.
Great. All right, thank you, Mel. Well then, at this point, can I have a motion as to whether to move this forward to the full board?
I move, we move it forward to the full board. Thank you.
I second.
Okay, any more discussion about it? No, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Campbell, thank you very much. Thank you. The alignment, the extra work, the information, the reflection
Yes.
on practices. This is really, really good job. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's my old computer that was making a noise, not the AC.
Oh, got it. That's
I'm waiting on my new device, Dr. Stratos.
Dr. Stratos.
No. I gave her a computer Monday.
It's being re-imaged, so it's making a
Yeah.
lot of noises. So
Yeah.
I actually gave her mine.
That was mine. I'm looking and
I'm
leaning.
plug in for myself.
You know what, Doc? That's a shame.
Okay. Well, we have about an hour left. So Ms. Henderson, would you like to go ahead and start?
Yes. Let me pull up my presentation here. Okay, can you all see my screen? Everyone can see the screen with performance expectation 1.9?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Good afternoon, board members, and thank you for this opportunity to present on the Professional School Counseling Program for Beaufort County School District, Performance Expectation 1.9 Guidance Services. The presentation today will be evidence and documentation that shows the school counseling program aligns with the school counseling, the student services policy of 49, and also more importantly, the district strategic plan. In the district strategic plan, there are several outlines areas where school counselors are directly responsible for supporting the school, i.e. the school district in regards to advanced placement, dual enrollment, Cambridge assessment curriculum, college and career readiness, international baccalaureate, individual graduation plans, multi-tiers of system support, MTSS, special education, and professional development. In the district strategic plan, as I mentioned a moment ago, it specifically states that the counselors have to be involved in all those areas I just mentioned. Additional documentation in the performance expectation package that I submitted of direct and indirect service provided by school counselors. Included in the packet of submission was the school counselor proposal, the school counselors newsletter for the month of September, October 2020, the American School Counselors Association, documentation from H.E. McCracken, which I'll be sharing some of those with you all, the agenda from our most recent meeting. I'll share that, social and emotional training that the counselors have gone through on the 14th, but also additional documentation that's available that I will be presenting. The goal of the school counseling program, as aligned with the American School Counselors Association, and also, as I mentioned, with the district policy and South Carolina Comprehensive School Counseling Guidance Model, is to undergird research that in which a school counselor provide social and emotional and academic supports to students, and it must be data driven. In 2005, the Education and Economic Development Act was passed, along with Personal Pathways to Success. And as educators, we're charged, and school counselors are educators, we're charged with the responsibility of providing K-12 students with strong academic and real-world problem-solving skills. All students at every grade level must be provided an individualized education, academic and career-oriented choices with greater exposure to career information and opportunities. And I won't read all of this to you all. You all have the packet that I submitted. The Education Economic Development Act, when it was passed in 2005, the school counselor to student to counsel ratio was 500 to 1. However, that was revised with the EEDA Act to the ratio of 300 to 1. And in addition, a career specialist assigned at every middle and high school to raise career awareness, exploration, and guidance services. And currently we have 4 career development facilitators in our district, and I'll talk about that more a little later. The Beaufort County School District goal for the school counseling program is to use available resources and ensure compliance with the South Carolina mandates to design and deliver programs with each of our schools that align with our district mission, vision, and strategic plan, as I mentioned a moment ago. And I'll go over the specific data in the areas that's mentioned in our current strategic plan. School counselors deliver curriculum that includes classroom activities such as counselors teach, team teach, and assist in teaching guidance curriculum, learning activities of units in classrooms and guidance centers and other school facilities. Also, school counselors are responsible for group activities, not only individual, but group counseling activities outside the classroom to respond to the students' identified interests and needs. And that is something that we'll talk about in regards to the individual graduation plan that was a part of the EEDA Act of 2005. Individual planning includes counseling activities to assist all students in planning, monitoring, and managing their own academic achievement, as well as their personal and career development. Individual planning emphasizes test preparation, education, counseling, including post-secondary and career planning. As we know, the individual graduation plan annual review is conducted annually in the grades of 8th through 12th. And included in that annual review is the student, the parent, guardian, or designee. It can be someone designated by the parent, and a professional school counselor, a licensed school counselor. Individual appraisal for school counselors work with students, again, analyzing and evaluating their abilities, conducting interest inventories and achievement, test information. Those are the things that are reviewed with the school counselor, along with the parent and the student during that IGP. But also, it is important and mandated in the EEDA Act that career awareness is held and conducted at the elementary school, career exposure at the middle school, and career planning at the high school. Because once they're in high school, it's time to implement that plan for post-secondary endeavors. Individual advisement, school counselors work with students using personal social, educational, career, and labor market information. And a big part of that in a partnership is the CDFs that we have in the school. As I mentioned a moment ago, and I'll talk greater later, we do have 4 career development facilitators. And thank you, Dr. Stratos, for adding on 2 more career development facilitators this year. We have 2 north of the Broad and 2 south of the Broad. Placement, school counselors assist students in making the transition from school to school to work, or school to additional educational training. Responsive services address the immediate needs of a student and concerns, such as services include personal counseling, crisis management, and that is something that unfortunately, but fortunately, that our district, I think we have gotten it down as far as crisis response. Whenever we are dealing with crisis, in particular when we're dealing with death of students or death of employees in our district crisis team and school crisis team has developed a model that has been implemented throughout the state. We have been sought after, and we've shared our district crisis plan with districts throughout the state. As a matter of fact, I shared it with my colleagues at the state level this morning, and I'll talk a little bit more about that once I talk about the crisis response team. Consultation. School councils consult with parents, teachers, and educators and community agencies. We have numerous approved community agencies that counselors work very close with when we're referring students or parents to outside agencies that have been vetted and approved by our school district. Personal counseling. Counseling is provided in small groups or individual basis for students expressing difficulties, dealing with relationship, personal issues, or developmental tasks. Personal counseling assists students in identifying problems, causes, alternatives, and possible consequences so appropriate action is taken. And we see that personal counseling not only with the school council, but that those problems may be, again, academics. And we'll talk about the MTSS model again here shortly. Crisis counseling, as I mentioned a moment ago, crisis counseling supports are provided to students facing emergency situations, such is normally short-term or temporary in nature. When necessary, appropriate referral sources are used. Can we mandate a student to go to counseling outside sources as school counselors? No, we cannot. If a school counselor or an educator mandated, then we're responsible for the financial aspect of that. We do referrals. School counselors use referral services to deal with crises such as suicide, violence, abuse, and terminal illness. These referral services may include following mental health agencies, employment and training program, vocational rehabilitation, juvenile services, and social services. So we have a wonderful partnership with our local community agencies. Systems supporting.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Jerry, you said you weren't going to read all this to us.
Okay, no.
But I don't see that you're not reading it all to us. One, and we're not going to get near done with all the stuff that you have, in there. So I'm for giving us some general information about it and some needs.
Okay,
and
I can
some,
do that.
Some directions on where we need to go to help improve this particular part of our district, or leave it alone because you're functioning well. And I'm assuming that all these things are being held accountable by someone in the district, but we wouldn't know any more about it by you telling us.
Okay, what I will expedite, and I'll highlight some of the significant events. As you mentioned, I did submit a wealth of information. I also prepared for you all, and I'll go to that, some highlights and bullets. Everything that I'm going to share with you right now are highlights of what was included in the packet. It's an overview of the data and some of the work samples that are included in Performance 1.9. As we know, we have approximately 21,235 students in our district, and the data is broken down there. And we have 12,000 students plus receiving face-to-face, and 8,000 students receiving virtual. School counselors were imperative with their duties and responsibilities. It was important that they provide support for those students in preparing for the school year, in particular with their scheduling. So school counselors, not only did they didn't start working in August, they worked basically the entire summer. School counselors, we have 64 of them. We have 4 career development facilitators. We had 4 school counselors to resign this school year. All positions are filled except one. Right now, we have a vacancy that's being filled by the school counselors of Right Choice. There was a counselor over here at Right Choice. However, there are no students at Right Choice currently. So that school counselor was placed over at Hilton Head Island High School to provide support. So they're fully staffed until Right Choice students start coming over here where there's a need. That individual will stay over there. During the course of when the school was dismissed into a total virtual format in March, when you look through the package, there's a link where I required school counselors to notate what were they doing during that time, because if you're in a virtual learning environment, how are you supporting your students? There was a task log that the school counselors were responsible for completing every week, and some of that information I know Dr. Stratus shared with you. Also in the PE-1, you will see our year-long professional development plan. Our emphasis this year was being placed on social and emotional training, bullying, dual enrollment, IGP, and college readiness. In regards to college and career readiness, as you all are aware, for the last 6 years, we had Naviance. Naviance contract expired August 25th. It was canceled. That contract was $450,000. And we terminated that contract because of low usage and because of the extreme cost associated with it. What did we do to replace Naviance to raise college and career awareness for students? We replaced it with with several great programs, to include Parchment, which is free. The state about 4 years ago purchased a contract with Parchment. Now we can transmit all electronic documents at the high school level for free. We also went into a contract with SCORE. SCORE is a college and career readiness online program. All the high schools have access to that. As for students can now do college search, they can do college match. They can also log into any institution in the United States through SCORE, and also we can do electronic transmittal of documents through SCORE. It is free. SCORE is for high school students. SCORE is also a free document, elementary, middle, and high school, that also raise college and career awareness.
May I interrupt just for, I don't think we're in that much of a hurry.
Okay.
I'm having trouble following because I'm trying to look at some of the documentation that you're referencing on my other computer. And so could we kind of follow along what you have, because we had to present this to the full board. So they're going to look at the documentation.
Okay, so do you want me to, these were just my highlighted notes. I can go back to the PE and just skip over some of those items also.
That would be advantageous to have the visual with the auditory, and you don't have to read it to us, but you could highlight it from the visual.
Okay.
So what page, where are you as far as what you're sharing with us?
Okay, I will skip through the documents here that's mentioned where there are references for evidence, and I will go through. As I mentioned, we have 64 counselors. They're the list of all the school counselors, the schools where they're located.
Okay, I got you. I'm with you now.
To include the career development facilitators.
Okay.
That the next page has the student to counselor ratio for every school in our district. You'll notice the student to counselor ratio where there's one, obviously 1, 2, that's the total number. To the left and to the right is the number for the particular counselor caseload.
Okay, and you said that 4 counselors left. Did you do an exit interview? Do you know why they left?
Yes, and HR maintained on file while they left. One counselor chose to go to, she wanted to move up north. And I will tell you, 2 of them left, actually 3 of them left and chose to seek employment with online institution because of the challenges that exist with the instructional environment or hybrid learning environment. It was too demanding, and 2 went to online and 1 actually resigned and said it was taking too much time from her family.
Okay.
Yes.
Good information to have to see where you might need to support the current guidance counselors so we don't lose 4 more.
And with a population of 64, 4 made a great impact. But I will share with you all that we're very fortunate that we did have school, we had individuals that had completed school counseling programs, so we were able to plug them right in. They were,
Mrs.
they were either in the district as a behavior management specialist, so we were able, but they had completed the school counseling program. And as I
Okay.
mentioned, the school counselor that was at Right Choice, we put her over at Hilton Head because there are no kids here.
Mrs. Henderson, on
Yes.
this page, right here, page 9,
Yes.
could you walk through the distribution of the ratio a little bit? Because I know you did a citation earlier
Yes.
regarding requirements and in relation to the PE regarding access. So if you could walk through that, is the 749 the school or Bluffton the school population? So each counselor is carrying a load of 374?
That is correct, Dr. Stratos. The state and the national guidelines, as we mentioned, is 300 to 1. And when we see 374, we don't scream because it's 74. However, if those numbers were 950, that's when we want to look at increase of personnel. Right now at 374 at an elementary school level, we will not, demand or request an increase as far as school counseling, because the school counseling ratio and the demand is different at the high school level than it is at the middle school level, where school counseling at the elementary school level is generally classroom guidance, individual and group counseling. They assist with testing. However, when we're looking at high school, there's additional laws and policies in which we have to adhere to for students to meet the South Carolina graduation requirement.
So are these numbers the same, these ratios the same as the ones you gave us last year? Because
No,
are there any?
Excellent question. I would tell you, I purposely went and did these numbers a couple of days ago because I wanted them to be accurate. The numbers have, Dr. Stratos and I talked about this, the school district's numbers have declined over 1,000 students. So the numbers have declined from last year. We have students where parents elected to withdraw their students from Beaufort County School District. So these numbers are actually lower.
Okay.
Total is a little over 1,000. Am I correct, Dr. Stratos?
Yeah, some of the numbers, the relationship is better this year.
It is most definitely better this year,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because parents withdrew their students.
Right.
And so that's what Dr. Stratos and I had this conversation earlier. The need is not as great because of the decline in the number of students we have.
Okay.
Well, I have a question. I see at the bottom of your slide right there, the ratio accepted. I think they had this discussion last year, but the American School Council model was 250 to 1.
Yes.
Not 300 to 1, as you're saying. That's the other guideline that we're going by.
The state guidelines is 300 to 1 in the EEGA Act. The American School Council model recommends 250 to 1.
Right. Now, how do we relate to either?
We adhere to the state guidelines of 300 to 1.
I mean, how are we conforming in every school?
Well, look at the list, Mel.
Yes, we are conforming at each school.
With exception of,
And
That's the
HR will not, I won't say would not support getting where there's 350 or 360 students and there's overall 700 students in a school and 2 school counselors. We're not going to see another school counselor placed there generally until those numbers, like for instance, I'll give an example, H.E. McCracken, they have the number here. They just increased the numbers for their school. The HR approved them. Let's find it here. They have here, perfect example, 932 students. They, up until this school year, they only had 2 school counselors. This year, there was an increase to 3 school counselors. Now the ratio is 310.
We have a couple elementary schools.
That's the kind of conversation I want to have,
Mhm.
because you just made a statement there that that's important to us, that HR wouldn't support such and such. Who set the
and I won't say they
for
wouldn't.
HR?
I wouldn't say they wouldn't support. They are aware of the numbers. And when I talked to Dr. Stratos about this last year, and we had the conversation with the human resource, just like with H.E. McCracken, we knew the numbers were increasing, and Bluffton area is growing extremely fast. So that was honored, where we were given that third counselor.
Okay, I understand that. I'm just trying to make sure that we got the counselors that we need and the counselors in the right places that we need. All of those things got to josh in terms of effective use of the counselors. And we're asking for the numbers to be relevant to the rest of the staff that we're asking for from a yearly basis. You don't have any control of that directly, but you can support, where the counselors are going. Particularly, Dr. Stratus has some directives in terms of this, because she can dictate where she wants her counselors to go and how many we need. And that can be a fist fight between Dr. Stratus, Dr. Rodriguez, and Ms. Walton. But the bottom line is, I want to know exactly where the conformity is, where it's not. And then I myself personally would look at the school's effectiveness in terms of what they're doing in terms of those graduation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the things that that's why I want to know, how much we're conforming. I saw where Red Cedar has 571 to 1. And how does that relate to their effectiveness?
Well, I must also add to that, Mr. Campbell and Mrs. Fidrych, is that elementary guidelines are different than high school and middle school guidelines.
In terms of the ratio? Or
yes, in comparison to the ratio, it is different for elementary than it is for high school and middle school.
Okay, so it's higher or lower?
The student counselor ratio is higher.
Okay.
What is it?
What is the,
I want to say it's 650. I will email you definitively those numbers for elementaries. I want to say it's 650 to 1. Yes, elementary is different. That's why I have the ratio at the bottom. Middle school and high school is 350 to 1.
Right.
Well, that gives me something to study now. Thank you. I mean, because now I can see some things about this that I would like to fine tune. If it's 650 to 1,
and that is a large load, but unfortunately, I would just say the policy states, South Carolina State Regulation 43, they define those policies, not our district, not HR. It is defined by state regulation. It is not us here at this level that define those numbers.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah. I couldn't hear you, Ms. Anderson.
As I mentioned a moment ago, is that we do not define those numbers. As I mentioned, you'll notice at the bottom, State Regulation Chapter 443 define the number of students to ratio. Even though the American and the national model says 250, we have to adhere to the state guidelines.
You mean only, or I mean, which way do we have to adhere?
We have national standards and we have state guidelines standards. We adhere to South Carolina South Carolina guidelines as noted in State Regulations Chapter 43, which is
for high schools.
For high school and elementary. High school, secondary and elementary.
Right, but if we're better elementary than we have to be, for example, Ladies Island. I mean, if you're adhering to state guidelines, then they need one counselor according to the guidelines. Am I incorrect? They got 2 for 500 students, 513 students.
Ladies Island Elementary, notice at the top has 223, but when you look at Red Cedar and those schools south of the Broad.
Ladies Island Middle, is that also?
Ladies Island Middle has, they're in compliance. They have 2 counselors and they're 256 each caseload.
Okay, that's what I want to be able to read that correctly before I look at the Red Cedar and say that you said they're in compliance because they got less than 600 students.
Yes.
Right, but what about Bluffton Middle?
Okay, Bluffton Middle has 2 counselors and they're over. And if you when we're talking about that caseload, is that extreme? I would say we need to start looking at a school like that.
I would
Right.
agree.
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what we're talking about. And
Yeah.
not only that, but we need to look at the results at Bluffton Middle in terms of what they're doing, in terms of the students entering the high school with those plans in place, etc., and how it relates to the counselors, as opposed to some schools who may not need to, although the rules say to.
Mhm.
If Bluffton is over and the state isn't hammering down anything because we are over at Bluffton, correct?
Correct.
All right. And so, I think we can manage within our system,
Mhm.
Right,
without being pushed and pulled by the state.
right. Kathy, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think that in addition to looking at peer numbers, we have to look at the challenges at the school. I can tell you, I've been at several meetings at Hilton Head High School.
Yeah.
Their guidance program has been in disarray for the past couple years. I think everyone would agree with that. They've been short, and so when I get calls from parents,
Mhm.
they didn't have any IGP meetings last year. They didn't have, so that's not, that's got to be addressed immediately.
Yes.
And, I think when you look at the high school numbers, Beaufort High School, 242 is a great number. That's within, and then you look at Hilton Head, 340. Well, that's not that huge, but they've been so inconsistent with keeping staff there that makes a difference. And I just think, our high schools, high school guidance counselor, you have to do all the college recommendations, so many important things that I know that the Hilton Head Island parents are very concerned.
And I will totally agree with you. When I say counselors have left, they have primarily left from Hilton Head Island High School. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. If we have a challenge right now in a guidance department, it would be Hilton Head Island High School, because the counselor, remember I just mentioned a moment ago, that's from Right Choice, is over there right now working at Hilton Head Island High School. I've had 3 counselors to leave there in the last year and a half, 3.
Okay, so that's the kind of data that would like to be in. What are we doing about it? What changes? What's happening given that information and that data?
And I will tell you,
Jerry, can I just slide in a second? Because there's a few things
yes,
that I want to bring forward. One, I think we need to, on page 9, is the idea of also putting the elementary requirement here.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I
Makes
think
a
that's
difference.
important.
Yes.
Yes, I think we need to look at following the state guideline, not because there's confusion between the American School Counselor guideline and the state reg 43.
we can do that.
I also want to share that as we're looking at the needs of schools, because first I have to back the door that Jerry does a great job at growing our own and pushing and working with actually the Citadel for programs at growing our counselors as well as our career personnel. I think we need to look also at the needs and how are we addressing our kids, all kids, and what can we look at recommendations? And I put a sidebar here, like, knowing the district expectations for high school, do we look at having some conversation that we have something that stipulates the state says this, but we want to be able to have this because of what each of
Right.
you are speaking about.
Okay.
One thing that I do, and I work close with HR, when one of the hiring practices, and we have to be mindful of in regards to the principals, is make sure we look at the counselor's background. There are counselors that state, and I will share with you one that left said, I don't want to be at a high school. I will work at an elementary and middle school. That need to be a part of the conversation when we're hiring school counselors. Even though you're K-12 certified, the demand at a high school is much greater than the demand at a elementary. Middle school is demanding, but the high school, it is more so demanding because we have to prepare students for post-secondary. We have to prepare them for whether that's college, military, or the workforce. We have to make sure they're college and career ready. We have to conduct IGPs with every one of those students. And the law states it must be face-to-face, or it can be virtual now. They've made concession. We have guidelines for that, but it must include the student, the parent, the guardian, or a designee. When I talked to principals and they called me in regards to when they hire a school counselor, I shared with them, make sure you know exactly where that school counselor wants to go. Do not place a high school, elementary school counselor who's expressed her desire to ultimately move to a elementary school and a high school. The challenges are much greater. And like I said, the counselors that we've lost this year, other than one of them specifically stated to that effect.
Well, that's, and that's also part of how we have to have the baseline knowledge of our schools to
Right.
know what the demands are. Hilton Head High School, the demands are absolutely high for helping the juniors and seniors get to the schools they need to go to. And so we have to slant that counselor's role in that direction where they can service the students. You got 80% of students going on to post-secondary schools, so they're gonna need some skills in how to facilitate those students. And that may not be true at Whale Branch or Battery Creek. You might need something else there, some kind of different kind of counselor skill. But all I'm saying, all the things you read there, or were reading, I read through a lot of this stuff already. Counselors can't possibly get it done. Not when they have 300 students and 340 students to deal with. It's impossible. So we got to kind of generate the directions that these counselors can deliver, and then communicate that to the parents.
And I will agree with you, Mr. Campbell, but I will tell you, all counselors receive comprehensive training during our professional development. We bring in a state representative because I want to ensure that every one of the school counselors have the same knowledge and level of expertise. And I'll give you an example. And as I share with them, we work for the school district. We work at a school. I had a school counselor leave May River that's at Well Branch this year. So and that's why I said, when we have to be strategic when we employ school counselors, or anyone for that fact, because, but if an individual voice where I'm working at Well Branch today, but I do want to move to Bluffton, we have to hear that during that interview process also. We need to be mindful of that fact, because students need continuity. And what we're going through at Hilton Head, I will tell you, we went through that several years ago at Battery Creek. And Mr. Cox came in and he and I worked together at the school level. He revamped his program, and now the counseling department, there's no transferring out. I don't want to leave. I love where I work. We have to get a group of counselors together, and I'm over at Hilton Head. This is where we're facing some of the challenges now that want to stay there. The 4 of the 3 that's over there, I am sure they will be there for the long haul. We have 4 great counselors. The one that we have over there temporarily, when those students come back to Right Choice, she will be back over here. And that's something we have acknowledged. And I've had that conversation with the principal. We're looking at another school counselor in the district that wants to go to Hilton Head High School. She's at another school in the Bluffton area, but she resides in Hilton Head about a mile down the street. So if we can put her there, who has a background of high school experience, we know that counselor will be there, and that team will be cohesive. Because whenever there's turnover, it's not good for none of the stakeholders.
Right.
Mr. Campbell, Mr. Earl Campbell would like to say something. You're muted, Earl.
I was just going to ask Ms. Henderson, how many counselors are we short right now, or are we?
The only position that we do not have a permanent counselor is Hilton Head, but like I said, the counselor that is from Right Choice is over there filling in until probably the end of the school year, so we can employ a counselor that will remain there and not move or resign a year from now. So right now we're short 1 school counselor. 1,
okay, thank you.
And I won't say it's the worst place, but whenever that's the case at a high school, that is not a good situation, because again, students need continuity. Parents need to be able to be confident that they'll be able to communicate with the same school counselor. If my child is in the 9th grade, that counselor will be there 4 years from now. That's how you develop those relationships.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Ms. Henderson, for this particular document, you are going to go back and just include the South Carolina required ratio.
Correct.
And you're also going to put in the elementary school
Correct.
ratio.
Correct.
And one school that we noted of great concern is Bluffton Middle also. And I was looking at Whale Branch Middle, but that does include 5th grade. Is that not correct?
5th grade is at the middle school at Whale Branch.
Right, so maybe an asterisk needs to be put next to that so that it realizes it's 5 through 8. You know what I mean? Because that
Yes.
with just saying middle school, it makes it seem like
Yes.
it's outside the.
Yes.
So I don't know what the number should be when it's 5 through 8.
I can adjust that accordingly.
Right. Okay. This has been really important conversation. And one thing I've taken away from this, and this is something that our academic committee has talked about for 2 years. We are here to see what you need based on the data and justifying what you need. But one thing we've always said is that we have to look at these schools and put what is needed at the schools where it's needed. You know, it's not just a one size fits all. And so I think it's just crucial for you to advocate that we need more counselors. It needs, you know, HR, we can't work in silos. We can't work in silos. And so if it's needed and the evidence is there that things are not moving forward, then please bring it to us. And the data is showing some of the justification for it. So Mary, what were you going to say?
Yeah.
Well, I think we need an initiative as our goal. It goes beyond HR. Is it a budgeted line item in order to provide the goal that we're setting forward?
Right. So what is the goal? What would-
As well, right, yes. So what is the goal? Because we're short career personnel at schools as well.
Right.
You know, so what is the goal? We were able to get 4 on. You know, I think Bluffton Middle is something that we need to look, it is a school we need to look at, because that's a lot, especially at 8th grade. There's a lot of decisions that have to happen there. You know, what do we want as a district so that we could work with our chief financial officer to bring this forward and say, look, this is our goal. How can we also make this happen? And part of the things that I brought up to Jerry is, you know, recognizing, you know, even our ESOL population, there's no representation for counselors or even enough personnel there, right? So I think at academic committees, we go forward with some of our PEs. I could bring forward to Tanya and say, hey, Tanya, this is coming from academic committee for us. Does that?
Right. Yes. But in order to say this is coming from academic committee, it would have to be, here's the goal.
Yes.
Where are we at in achieving that goal and all the justification behind it? Because, you know, right now, this looks similar to last year, but if we had seen this in a format of, okay, our goal was this to increase X number of CDF, you know, and here we are, but our 5-year plan is to increase it by X amount per year. I mean, I think that would be what Mr. Campbell was saying. We went from A to B to C to get to D. And
actually, Mrs. Fidrych, may I add, and that was because we were not in line with state guidelines last year. When I did submit this, I did submit a proposal that included exactly what you stated. And it's also in the proposal that I submitted with the documents today. So it clearly outlines what you're saying.
Okay.
Jerry, how many CDFs do we need?
And right now, we're supposed to have a CDF in every middle and high school in the district. That's a total of 13 schools. We have 4 CDFs, and we're sharing they're housed at the middle school, but they're supporting they're housed at the high school. We have one for Battery Creek and Well Branch. They share. That one counselor work both of those schools. CDF, that's impossible. Let's be honest. She's supporting 2 cluster of schools. We have one for the Beaufort cluster. We're supposed to have a career development facilitator by law at every high school and middle school within our district. We have a total of 4 CDFs. And the law states that they work under the direct supervision of school counselors and the principal, providing career and college awareness to those students.
Could you share, Jerry, what was a prior administration's philosophy?
Oh, I sure can, Dr. Stratus. Thank you for asking. And Dr. Stratus and Dr. Rodriguez defense, they inherited this. Dr. Stratus can attest, when she came here last year, we had 2 CDFs.
Oh, yes, we know.
Right. So in 2011, we had CDFs in every middle and high school. The decision was made that we will make sure all school counselors are also CDF trained, and we'll get rid of the CDFs. And I think that was a mistake, because you cannot expect a school counselor with a caseload of 360 or 411 students to also be completely and thoroughly carry out the duties and responsibilities of a CDF. That's not realistic, and it's an injustice to the students.
That's
Yes.
correct.
I remember when that happened.
Yes.
And when we lost that, the school where I was, we lost that person.
Yes.
She had such rich relationships with students to help guide them as where they were going. And it was a big, big loss to the school. So,
and it adversely impact the school counseling department. Let's say, for instance, right now, if we had a CDF over there supporting the school counselors at Hilton Head High School, that's another person that can also provide college and career awareness counseling to the students, because that's in the scope of their duties.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So one of the things, when we look at budgetary and adding things to our line items, we did get rid of $450,000 Naviance because it wasn't being used. Now, we picked up some other things, but perhaps, did we look at, let's take some of that money and add another person instead? I mean, those are the types of decisions, I guess, that we need to be talking about.
Yes, because we were able to take, and Jerry could attest, between Navi, this year we have a 0 course factor for our guidance services.
Correct.
We brought SCORE in, and they were even, in comparison to Naviance, SCORE was originally going to be 15,000.
Correct.
16,000, and they chose to work with Beaufort County, subject to our amount of schools that are Title I and our Title I number as a district, and they didn't charge us.
Oh. Yeah.
Nice. Right. So Cathy, the only thing about taking that one-time cost savings and applying it to recurring.
Yes, that's true.
But still, but
at least you get it started, right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
But there would have been a reoccurrence factor should we remain with Naviance, and we also didn't renew Rosetta Stone, which was another significant cost to the district. I monitored the data for usage reports for months. I couldn't justify renewal for the price point. So there are things that we could bring forward on as a recommendation.
Please do.
Yeah.
Okay, and we look at the fact that we have 8 middle schools,
6
6 high schools, 14. So you're looking at the pay scale of 10 personnel.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So if it's a recommendation, but I am going to say we need to get some bilingual personnel.
Yes.
I have to share that. I think that's critical, especially south of the broad. When you look at the numbers in relation that way, right? How many students are being serviced, or parents, of other languages? We're missing opportunity as well to service and grow populations.
Agreed. So I think those things should be brought forward. Let's get in compliance with our counselors, at least get left and middle, in compliance, CDFs, and bring those ideas forward.
And Dr. I'm sorry, Mrs. Fidrych, you will see
Dr. Fidrych would be great.
And Dr. Stratus and I had this conversation earlier this morning, but that is included in the proposal because this is a part of the performance expectation, but in bringing this to your attention, we also put a recommendation for a solution in that also.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're looking at $814,000 annually.
And how
Yeah.
much did we approve
I
for
did a
those
count.
elementary security?
I'm not.
I'm
Dr.
not
Farrell?
saying, no, 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 no.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
The security situation was over $1 million, it was 1.2.
Yeah,
Yes.
And I'll quickly go, some of this is evidence of the students that we served as far as Beaufort County. We have a partnership with Friends of Caroline Hospice. Real quick example, you know, we have recently had the family that passed away off of the Beaufort Bridge. And these are the folks that are working hand in hand with us to provide support. Because we're in a virtual learning environment, we did something different in that situation because we had 2 schools in a virtual learning environment. I worked with the counselors and we created a virtual grief counseling room. And it really worked flawlessly where the students, the teacher could refer a student, a school counselor and a school psychologist and social worker manned that line for the entire school day for several days and supported students and staff members who needed counseling. And that information was shared with the state actually this morning, and they will be implementing that also across the state.
Wow.
wow.
Excellent.
And those are the folks we serve. We lost students the last 2 years from the schools listed there on the screen. And those, Battery Creek and Robert Smalls, were the most recent ones. And those are the students that we provided services to the last 3 years that noted there. And these are approved outside partners that provide counseling to students. And we can refer, we share this list with parents also, all the stakeholders. And not only for students, for staff members also. And those are just some other duties listed there. School counselors are part of the RTI MTSS team. This school year, we have overall right now 690 students that are pending RTI plans. School counselors are involved with that. When we're talking about duties and scopes that align to our strategic plan, what I mentioned earlier, those are the number of students that school counselors are serving this school year. And also last school year, there was a total of 2,823.
Before we go on, I did have some questions about this slide right here. Okay, and I believe we had some of these same questions last time you presented.
Yeah.
I was very surprised that May River has no, can you go up a little bit, Robin, please? May River has no RTI plans.
And that is an issue of concern. And I've worked with Todd Bornshire. He has an MTSS coordinator, and he and I will be meeting and discussing this more in detail because it's imperative. And as a matter of fact, I had a meeting not only with him, with Beaufort High School. The high schools, you'll notice the RTI plans are smaller, but the needs are the needs are still there. Research shows 10% of your students in any school should have an RTI plan at any given time. And that is not 10% of any school last school year.
Well, it's also, you know, look at Hilton Head Island Middle School. That's surprising for a middle school, especially a priority.
It's
A priority school.
And
Yeah.
that was their numbers from last year. Yes, when I pulled those, yes.
They were the numbers as of March, August to
Right
March.
before March, when school was out, yes.
Right. So I believe we met. You reported to us in November 20th, 2019.
Yes,
So
but
these
these
are the
numbers-
same numbers.
And these numbers, that's why I said these were last year numbers that I reported to you. And as of right now, at the top, tier 1, you see tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Those are the numbers that we have pending right now.
Okay, well, I would think that for this PE, we can't have the same information we had last year.
Exactly.
So I would think that needs to be updated. School is in session, although virtually, but we still have RTI plans.
And
right?
I will break those tier downs by schools for you, the ones that we have currently. That's in the top of the screen.
Yeah.
Yes. Because it was a little deja vu, because I do remember we also talked about, you
Yes.
know, how is it possible that Bluffton Middle had 144 students in RTI, and then all of a sudden they go to the high school. I mean, there are 4 at the high school. So I mean,
Not
this
there,
this
right.
this has some
Right.
concern from last year as well.
And I would break those down.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anybody else regarding that?
No. Well,
Mr. Earl Campbell has his hand up.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell? You're muted, Mr. Campbell.
I'm sorry, I should have took it down. She
Okay,
answered my
sir.
question.
Okay.
All right.
And for each school, when we talked about the IGP, what I wanted to also share with you, we have a timeline that we created at the district level. It's important so we can ensure all those schedules in regards to the students' IGP from the 8th grade to the 12th grade. Those are completed prior to the end of April because the state locked, what we call locked all the IGPs in the month of May. And that's when the State Chamber of Commerce pulled the data. The state pulled the data and shared with the state legislature and the Chamber of Commerce at the state level. And you'll notice here, right now, the high schools are doing the IGPs for the class of 2021.
Okay.
And this is the data as of 2 days ago, where they are as far as IGPs. The red notate they've not started at each school. Green is completed. And again, they have that timeline, and all the high schools start with the seniors because those students are preparing to transition. And you'll notice again, high schools, the not started is red. Beaufort High School, Bluffton High School. You'll notice Bluffton High School have 212 of their seniors completed already, 54 remaining. They have to the end of November to have all the seniors completed.
Whew. They're running out of time.
Hilton Head. But this is the data that's included in the report to include middle school, the 8th graders. And dual enrollment for fall, this year we have 230 students with a total for TCL, 550 classes enrolled. And there's a breakdown of each school. And it has last year data also. So
Very quickly, could you share the change for second semester with dual enrollment?
for second, as of March, College Board and ACT ceased national assessment tests such as SAT and ACT due to the coronavirus, and institutions throughout the country stopped requiring the SAT and ACT to include USCB. So going forth for second semester for dual enrollment, the requirements for students to enroll will be the GPA 3.0 unweighted, which is our normal requirement, recommendation from the school counselor approved by the principal. They will also look at factors such as attendance. They will look at disciplinary records to ensure that we're not setting students up for failure. So they're in the process now of pulling those rosters of students that are 3.0 or higher and scheduling meetings with those students and their parents to see if that is something that they want to pursue second semester. So we dropped the test requirement for USCB and TCL for second semester.
Okay. All right. I do have a question, about the dual enrollment. Go ahead.
And the second set of data is for USCB. Did the numbers go down this year for fall? Yes, they did go down some, and you'll be able to compare and contrast when you look at the numbers.
Okay, I was actually looking at your PowerPoint that you completed.
Yes.
And there's a chart on the PowerPoint. Could you roll that up a little bit, Robin? Let's see. I'm looking at dual enrollment for spring of 2020 at both schools. Okay, that's fall. Okay.
That's fall and that's spring.
Move down right there.
Okay, so there's spring. Okay, so here's what I'm wondering about.
Okay.
When you look at TCL for spring of 2020.
Yes.
Okay. You're looking at most of your students cover Battery Creek, Beaufort High, Whale Branch. Okay. You have 78 out of 264 coming from south of the Broad. Now go over to USCB.
And I would,
USCB, you have less than, not you, we. I do not mean this, Jerry.
I understand.
For that. I don't mean that one bit at all, but there is 1%, less than 1%, right? Beaufort High School has one student going to USCB out of 113. All the rest are from south of the Broad. Now, we have the original USCB right here at Beaufort. Okay, you've got the main campus of TCL, you know, down in Bluffton. I don't understand the difference, why we have such different numbers for the different geographies. I mean, I understand Whale Branch, they're tied, you know, with TCL.
Well, excellent question, to be honest with you. When students qualify for dual enrollment, the decision to what campus or institution they will attend, that decision is ultimately made by the student and the parent. We share with them all information. When we host dual enrollment night, we have it for TCL and USCB. Their advisors are there at every dual enrollment parent night. We share the information with them so they can make an informed decision. Students north of the Broad can definitely attend USCB or USCB campus downtown. We do not in one way or the other, because if they make that decision. When we reestablished the partnership with USCB about 3 years ago, it was like a year-long process where I met with the senior leadership at USCB, Dr. Moriarty and her team. They had terminated the relationship for several years for reasons unbeknownst to me and before my time as far as coming to the district level. But when we reestablished that, we knew the primary request to go to USCB when we reestablished that partnership did come from south of the Broad, but the opportunity is available to every student at all 6 high schools within our district.
Okay, you know what, I'm gonna recommend, because it's after 4 o'clock and I know that Ms. Robine is traveling all the way to the district office for the 6 o'clock meeting. So I would like to recommend that we continue this conversation on November 18th, which is our next scheduled meeting date for the academic committee.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay?
Yes.
Yep.
So, Ms. Henderson, thank you so much. You just have a wealth of information here for us to digest, and you can see where it bubbles up all kinds of conversations. So,
Yeah.
and you're a wealth of historical knowledge. So thank you
Thank you.
very much for that.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, much appreciate this. It's so stimulating and
Excuse me, what time on the 18th? Do we want to keep it at 2
Oh.
o'clock?
I'm gonna ask, you know, it works for me, but what about the rest of you? Dr. Stratos, Ms. Henderson,
That's fine with me.
Mr. Campbell? Cathy, good, okay.
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay, 2 o'clock then, Robin, on the
Got
18th. We'll continue with PE 1.9, and we also have 1.1 scheduled for the 18th. Okay?
Got
Great.
it.
Okay,
Then thank you, everybody. Motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, see y'all later.
All right, thanks,
All right.
Trish.
All right.